Let's see, let's move me down. Make me a little smaller. There we go. Okay. Should be live. There you go. We're live on the YouTube. Hi, everybody. Sorry if I'm late. Oops. I have to do my standby. I think I have to do the audio. All right. Audio should be working. Let me double check. Oops. I have to do my standby. I think I have to do the audio. So bright. Okay. All right. Should be working. Yeah. Double check. We're good. And let's see if we made it live. There we go. Trying to find the Facebook live and okay, we're good. So if anybody wants to comment, I should have, whoops, let me turn that down. I should have the comments ready to go. Let me know you're watching. Hi, Marcia. Where am I at? I am at, I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. Good old US of A. So, it's about 50 degrees. No, well, yeah, it was. It was about 50 degrees here yesterday. So we're finally warming up. Yeah. I'm going to go to this scene so I can make sure I am in the scene. Thanks for joining me. It was really nice. What I'm going to do today is I did post the reference photo. I think I put it in the chat or I put it in the description. It's basically a barn. It's actually really wide. I cropped this one. There's a delay, so I need to I'm going to go to the one where there isn't a delay. So I cropped this from the original reference photo from Pixabay, so it's like a really wide landscape. But I loved the trees, I loved the clouds, and so I just kind of made it a little small one. Because last time I did it, an 8x10 size, and that I was like live for an hour and a half. So that's like a little too long. So I thought, I better stick to my usual size that I like to do tutorials on or demos on, is a 7x5. And this is Arches 100. No, I'm sorry, this one. Whoops, I better change that in the description because I always say I'm using Arches. That's not Arches. I'll change that. This is Fabriano watercolor paper, cold press, 140 pounds. So that means it's the thinner version. And I like this one because it's extra white. It like really makes the whites really pop, right? So you get a really bright white. Whereas the Arches is a natural white. So I just don't think you get the really super bright whites with Arches. But I mean, it's an amazing paper. So not complaining. And looks like I did that upside down. So I was a little late because I forgot to do my sketch. So sorry about being late. I did the sketch here. What I'm going to do super quick, because I think this is really important, especially for beginners or somebody just starting out. I have a handmade swatch diary that I make. And I feel like, there we go, that's better. That I made because I have so many of these little kind of sheets, right, with scribbles, and I make notes on them of colors that I like and that I did for certain projects. So what I did was I made a swatch diary, and there should be a link to it if you want to buy it. Here's one that I did the ocean sunset for Tuesday's live. But what I'm going to do, and this is colors for the Joyful Watercolor Beginner Kit, but what I'm going to do today, I have it all ready to go, the colors that I used for this painting. So here's what is a really good idea to do. Just making sure I'm in camera. And I like to use kind of a smaller, this is a 4, that's good. I'm going to turn the light back on here. Can you hear me okay? Is everything okay over there in the YouTube land and the Facebook land before I kind of really stop looking at the chat for a little bit? Looks like everything's okay. So I'm going to, there we go. I'm just going to keep on going. For this, now the cool thing for the clouds, I thought that would be kind of fun to kind of show you guys how I used white gouache to make fluffy clouds, right? White gouache is more of an opaque watercolor, meaning you can't see the paper through it, where watercolor is really kind of known for transparency, where you can see the paper through it, which is why you use the paper for the highlights and the whites. So not to get too into that right now. So what I'm going to do is a cobalt blue, and my palette is a mess. I'm sorry. I'm really bad about cleaning up my palette. So bad. God. Let me just make a clean cobalt blue. I was late because I forgot to do the sketch. And anyway. Okay, so cobalt blue, and this is cobalt blue. I've never used... this is a French watercolor. I'm going to botch it. Sennelier. 2 N's there. Anyway, heard great things about it. I'm branching out, trying other watercolors. So this is a cobalt blue, and I like it. It's creamy. Adding a little more pigment there. You can see it go pretty thick. It's almost opaque. And the reason I have black edges or, swatches is because it will help when you cover the watercolor over the black. Purposely go outside the lines, right? You can see how opaque your watercolor is. Okay, so now I'm just going to dip my brush in some water and then add water, and you can see it's more transparent. So that's kind of like the thick version to the transparent, thinner version with more water. You can even add more water and see really go how light, but I always have a tissue with me too. So anyway, so that's it. This takes 5-10 minutes, and I'm telling you, I just go back to, if I'm like, oh, I left those clouds, how did I do that? I go back to my notes and I know what colors I use. No guessing. Payne's Gray. It's a great color. Kind of a bluish gray. I mean, you can make your own Payne's Gray. This is what's called kind of a convenient color, which is it's like a musky navy blue. I don't know really how else to. It's a gray. It's like a blue gray. I guess it's not really navy. So you can see, add some water, you can kind of see the bluish hue in there. And neutral tint is kind of the same, but violet, purpley. And you can make your own colors. These colors. This is a convenience color, and it's great because for shadows, mix it in with the cobalt to knock the cobalt back a little bit. Here's actually some mountains that I did, and this is Payne's Gray, and I think it's cobalt. So you kind of get a mixture of the two together. Okay, so then that's for the clouds. I did add a little alizarin crimson to the clouds, but for the grass and the trees, I did a little permanent sap green, which is nice here. Permanent sap green. You can see that's pretty thick there when it's like just a little bit of water. And then adding water, There you go. Made it nice and transparent. Now this is a great kind of a base color. You can add so much to a green to shift the color to forest, to lime green. You can do so much with that. With a kind of a base color of sap green. Again, you can make your own greens, but I kind of like sap green just for easy convenience. Bismuth yellow is a great color for, it's a really bright, like lemony yellow. So this is what I used for the grass, and then I mixed in a little bit of sap. And you can see adding a little more, whoops, I got some green in there. Adding a touch of water, and it gets pretty transparent pretty quickly. So a couple more, and then we'll get started with the painting. Alizarin Crimson. Oh my gosh, my palette. Okay. I gotta like make a note to myself. Clean your palette before you go live. How embarrassing. Okay. This is Alizarin Crimson. I'm pretty sure it's Winsor Newton, not sure. And then that's a little light one. Now I put Alizarin Crimson and Burnt Umber next to each other because that's kind of what I used for the barn. I did a lot of blue as well, Payne's Gray to get the super dark, but I mixed some Burnt Umber in there as well to kind of get a more rustic kind of a red, more rustic kind of a crimson. Now that's hardly with any water. It went kind of thick there. Let me put a little more water. And then kind of the cool thing is you can blend on the paper. So let's take a little more red and then we can blend it and see how that makes kind of a nice rustic red. I can maybe put the color right here. So that makes a real pretty rustic red. There we go. So that's what, these are kind of the base colors, and you really don't want to use a ton of colors for a project, especially something as small as this. You really want to keep your palette simple, you know. Definitely your primaries, right? Which we kind of have. We have our blue, yellow, and Alizarin Crimson, and then I added some convenience colors right there. And I'm going to add probably maybe a little ultramarine just for, I think, a little darker. But anyway, I'm going to try not to talk so much and just do. So, I'm going to kind of keep, this isn't going to be wet on wet, so it's not too splashy. So I should be able to kind of leave that there. Have both of these in the camera. Okay, so for the sky, I'm going to do the sky first. I have this kind of fun Princeton Neptune brush. I forget what kind of brush this is called. Anyway, it's size 4, holds a ton of water. So I am going to do a little wet on wet here, but not, you know, crazy like I was Tuesday with the sky. So I'm just applying, I'll put a little color on there just so you can kind of see. Wet on wet or just a really wet brush is totally fine because it's not a large area. What I'm doing now is just kind of getting the base of the sky, and it's totally okay to go down to the horizon. May not be able to see it, but I have kind of like a little horizon line here. Just, you know, maybe go around the cabin. Actually, if you do get a little blue in the roof of the cabin, that's fine because it's reflecting, right, the sky. So don't stress if you put a little more blue up there while it's wet. If you kind of get a little blue or whatever color on the roof, don't even worry about it because it is kind of like a gray blue, steel blue. So just, you know, maybe not get it in the grass for sure. Although I did a lot of layers for the grass, so probably would cover anyway. Yeah, so a little cobalt, and it always dries few shades lighter. How is that looking? Is that over exposed? Looks kind of bright. I'll tone it down a little bit. Okay. Sometimes overexposed, you can't tell. Still figuring out some of the camera settings. Okay, good. So that looks pretty good. We get down here a little bit. Now, while it's still wet, I'm going to add a touch of the alizarin crimson, right? Maybe get a little violet in there. And you could totally change. We kind of have to decide really. The reference photo, it looks like the sun is kind of like overhead. I don't see any dramatic cast shadows. Maybe it is in the larger photo, but I cropped it. So we could make it, that's how I kind of made it a little bit more interesting with the clouds. There are some shadows over here with the trees and the cabin. So definitely the sun is definitely coming this way, but it's not, obvious, I should say. So, okay, kind of like purposely stalling here, letting it absorb. And I'll zoom in a little bit now. Letting it absorb. And then always have a tissue ready. I have to have my tissue ready, right? So I can blot and lift. I lift a lot when I'm painting. Like lifting is just as important as laying down the color. And see, we kind of already we're already starting some happy clouds there, right? Who doesn't love Bob Ross? I could kind of make a cool little swirly cloud like I did on Tuesday. And have a fun swirly thing going on. So I'm not really too worried about what happens. This is gonna dry a lot lighter, and I'm gonna go over it with gouache anyway. So I think there is a little area right here that I kind of want a little more blue. So I'm just gonna hit this with a little blue and then be done. And let this dry and start mixing up. Make sure I have my greens ready to go, and I'm gonna. I don't know if I do the tree. I think I might do the front of the cabin. Actually, let the sky really dry before I do the trees. I can dry it too. I have a dryer. Okay, it's a little bluer maybe, but it's gonna dry a lot lighter. So let's see. There we go. That's better. A little contrast in there. So what I'm doing is just like I'm lifting and then I blot with the tissue. I mean, you could just make clouds like this and be done, right? But I thought it would be fun to show how I did the fluffy clouds with the gouache. So I think what I'm going to do is get the first layer of the red, the cabin on there, because it's the first layer is going to be like a really light pink. You can kind of see right in here. And then I did like 2 or 3 layers over it. And it doesn't have a lot of structure, right? It kind of looks flat to me. So for this one, I did barn doors. I made barn doors. What I'm going to do is just get my alizarin crimson with a lot of water. And I think I'm going to dry just around here, just because I don't want it to bleed into the sky. So sorry, I'm going to have to turn on the dryer. That's fine. Okay. I'm just going to do a quick light layer, and I'm going to have a really wet brush. This is a size 4. It's my Joyful watercolor brand, and I love it because it holds a ton of water and it's really pointy. And so I can get right in like these little nooks. So I'm following the reference photo for the color, and and kind of the wood texture of the wood, but other than that, this is just like a base layer, and I may leave a little white. Now, while it's wet with this color, is when you want to add, and I can have a little drawing of the barn door, so I'm not too worried about like covering it. I just want a nice pink color underneath, maybe save a few little white dots. We'll see if they last. And then over here, wet brush, really get it wet. It takes a minute for the water to absorb in the paper too, you know. But I turned the heater off, so hopefully everything won't dry super duper fast. Get a little more color in there. This is a lot darker as far as the base color. But this corner seems to be the lightest, so the sun maybe is up high hitting. I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about where the sun is because I don't know where it is. Now I'm mixing a little bit of my alizarin crimson. I don't know if that's on camera. I think it is. And with a little bit of the brown, any brown or even burnt sienna, right? Could work. But just to get that little wood kind of there. And you notice it's kind of thick. Get a little more red in there. There we go. I want like a pretty reddish. There we go. Adding a little water to my brush. There. A lot of times, I hope my head isn't in the camera. A lot of times it's just easier to mix your colors on your paper. And a lot of, I think, watercolor artists would agree. That's kind of how you get a more, I'm just going to blot, a more natural look too. Don't worry too much about mixing your colors in your palette, right? Just let them blend on the paper. So it's drying a little bit. You'll see that's the dry brushing effect going on right there, but I'm not ready for that yet. So now I have my light values, right? So what am I doing now? I'm getting my mid values in. Value does all the work, color gets all the credit, right? So I'm just getting my values of this barn red color that I have. So got the pink. Now I'm getting kind of this mid value in. And if you put too much on, you can blot, right? While it's still wet, you can just take your tissue and kind of blot. Soften some edges, tissue, don't worry about it. You're still at the super beginning stages. We're going to do, layers over this, so don't worry about it if you don't like your first layer. Never worry about it. It's all fixable. It really is. I think watercolor is fixable. So, reference photo, there's a door over here, but you know what? I'm going to ixnay the doorway and because we're going to make barn doors here. Yes, that's Pig Latin. I am old. I don't know what ixnay is. Okay. All right. So cool. We got a nice base layer on there, right? That looks okay. And then I kind of see my pencil lines for the barn door, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm just going to let that dry. So, I think while the sky is dry, so let's get our green made. And even a lot of times for the trees, I'm going to use this brush. I put it in the description. I was pretty good this time about putting what I used in the description. So this is in there. I love this brush because it lifts. It's synthetic, so it's a little rough. And you'll see what I do with the trees. I wet it and I spread it a little bit so I can get the kind of the leaves of the trees. So this is kind of a fun brush to use. But what I'm saying is that if you don't want to use a big brush to mix up your colors, you can always grab a smaller brush to kind of do the dirty work, or right, the hard work. What am I trying to say? To mix your colors, because sometimes it takes me a few minutes to make a puddle, right? This was the gold color from the sunset on Tuesday. I'm gonna get rid of that. Might need that little area. So anyway, so I use my little brush, little tool here, and I'm just gonna get my green ready. I'm gonna get my lightest green, which really is gonna be my yellow. I'm gonna start with bismuth. So you see how the sap green kind of took over that bismuth there. There we go. So I'm going to do this, I think, for just to have this ready, right? Just to have some yellow in case it starts getting too green. I have a little yellow I can grab super quick. Then I kind of like a sagey green. So I'm going to see if I can grab a little blue over here and make a little sagey green. And it's nice because, you know, see, that's a sap green with the cobalt blue. Isn't that pretty? Just a real pretty green. Add a little water. Kind of a sagey green. Maybe add a little bit more blue. I think just for the first layer of trees, like you can kind of see what I did back in there. First layer, and then the second layer you get more darker colors of values, and then you can put the trunks and the branches in there. But yeah, that's a pretty color. So I am gonna, and my yellow is sneaking in there. Look at that. Look at that. I have too big of a palette. I need to get a smaller palette. Well, I have a smaller palette for these live sessions. All right, so now that I like that color, I'm going to make a little bit more of it. I'm going to make kind of a nice creamy puddle. I probably did too much blue. That's okay. Oh, there you go. Kind of a nice sagey green there. Who doesn't love a sage color? I don't know. I love a sage color. All right, so now, right, I can park my workhorse brush and grab this one, right? And what I'm going to do is kind of spread out, right? And then always have a little scratch piece, always nearby, right? And just kind of warm yourself up. Probably have to make a little bit more. See, here's the difference between, so here you can make, are the marks that I'm going to do for the shrub here, right? Just kind of like nice little pointy, you can straight up and down, make some little dots. But when you spread it out a little bit, and it's really wet, you can do little kind of, there we go. You could do little leaves. There we go. That's why you gotta have the scratch paper. So I also like to use a fan brush. So I cut into this fan brush to make kind of a cool. But the trees, this is such a small painting that I kind of think this is a little, it's kind of a little big, right? And it's got to be pretty wet. So anyway, I just felt like I'd have more control with this one, but this is great for larger, kind of bigger, when you want to do like big pines, right? Like that kind of thing. So anyway, I won't go too much into that. I'm trying to keep us on schedule here. So this brush is very thirsty, so I'm going to load it up with water, right? Do a little bit of a spread. And I kind of know what I'm going to get now, so I'm just going to go for it and just get kind of an idea of where I want to do my my trees. There. And then if you get one that's too dark, you know, just blot it up. Just blot up. I know it doesn't look like much now, but it will. Kind of once you get all your values in there. I purposely want like a really light wash for these trees. And I'm tempted to put it like right here, maybe do a shadow on the barn, but I think maybe that could be for another lesson. We'll just want to get this on here. So I just want to get this done because I want this to dry. And go up a little higher, maybe turn, make it a little more interesting. Okay, and so that's nice. Then the red is pretty much dry. I can probably do, I'm going to do the roof now because I want to do the green behind the roof. So I'm going to do the roof, and I'm going to grab my small size again, and I'm going to go for the blue with the Payne's gray, right? Because it's reflecting in the sky. So we'll go with the lightest color first, which is kind of a nice pretty blue. Okay. And blot. There we go. And then the reference photo of the roof is like, it's kind of dipping and it's got definitely some dips in there. So I'm going to kind of bring that front and center. I think that adds character. And then we can just get the edge, which is darker, and then this edge here. Great, then while it's wet, I'm going to just kind of do a drop of Payne's Gray. This is going to dry. You can see how much lighter the sky dried. There we go. And the roof, I don't know what they are, but the panels are going, they're going down. So that's the way I'm brushing and brushing down. Then let's get the edge here. And there's a little bit of a edge here. And that way it kind of guides me for the the eave, I guess, of the roof. And then let's go down here. There we go. So now we have our base layers for the roof. And so say you got a little too dark. You didn't like it, even though it's going to dry a lot lighter. But say you're like, oh no, I didn't want it that dark right there. So you wet your brush, rinse your brush, get it clean, blot, right? So it's absorbent, right? A thirsty brush. And then you can just kind of pick up. And you can wipe. And then you can just kind of pick up and get some kind of direction of the roof. And you can do this while the paper's damp, right? Paper's got to be damp. So that's good. So let's let that dry. Hitting my arm. And let's do another layer. This is what you do with watercolors. You kind of just keep hopping around, right? Let me just check the chat. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any in Facebook. I think I'm live in Facebook. I don't know. looks like we're doing good. So I'm just gonna kind of keep on moving on. All right. Good. Whoops. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna do the second layer, and I'm gonna go a little darker, right? I'm gonna get, because we got the shadows under the eaves and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna grab my alizarin crimson. That in camera, yeah. Alizarin crimson. Whoops, I think that's an orange there. That's okay. And a little bit of our brown, a little burnt umber. And for this one, I'm probably going to add a little bit of ultramarine. And you can see it kind of gets it a little darker. There you go. Like a, kind of a violety red. But the brown kind of keeps it from turning too purple. So let's see what it looks like here. All right. See, when you add the ultramarine blue, look at how dark it makes it. Just a real rich, rich color. Then if I add some more water, it's the same color. I just added water. So there you go. So that's kind of a good dark for the shadows. And you can make it more blue if you want. You can make it more red if you want. Whatever you want to do. This is your painting. So let's make sure we're in camera. Okay. So now let's just start underneath and get a structure to this little barn. So get some lines basically, right? Get the shape, get the lines. And this is why it's good. Take the time and do your drawing. I'm just going to use the same color. There, and then before it dries, I usually don't like to kind of do this type of painting where you're kind of doing the edging first because you don't want it to dry. So before it dries, get right back in there. Just when I do a straight line, sometimes I have to, just do the line. But before it dries, get back in there so you don't have that edging line. There you go. And if you do, just add some water. Add some water. Okay. And this is going to dry a lot lighter, so I'm not too worried if it's too dark. I added water. I didn't want it flat. I want different variations. And then I got to think of the door. Almost forgot. So let's create the barn door. I kind of see my sketch under there. So let's say our barn door is about right here. See how I'm just kind of moving the paint around and just keep your brush wet and you can really maneuver your paint. So let's do some hard edges right here for the barn door. And then up on top here, it'd probably be the same, right? And then I'm just going to kind of that. Let's see, that one looks a little longer. Get more color. There we go. Nice. And then let's I was thinking maybe like doing a latch or something. I don't know. I'll definitely have to do another layer after this dries. But we just want to get the shape of the door, right? Is that kind of coming across on the camera? Where are you guys watching from? Looks like I have a few viewers. Let me know where you're watching from. While I'm mixing my darker petal here. yeah, let me know where you guys are watching from, or if you're new to watercolor, or any questions. I done a lot of in-person teaching, so I like to teach, like to help people, help students, which is why I'm here. I enjoy this very much and kind of forces me to paint. Forces me to learn, really. That's kind of what it's about. All right, so we have, ta-da, a little suggestion of a barn door there. I'm not going to get too crazy with a million layers. I think you guys kind of can figure that out. But I did notice, oops, that kind of dried over there. We'll see what kind of line we get. See if we have a hard line. I'm just going to blot. And I'm trying to make it look like it's streaky. You know, I want the, old kind of barn paint. And then, you can definitely throw in a different red or something. Maybe if you want to do like a warm red, kind of your traditional barn red in there. This is a warmer red, Windsor red, and that will break up maybe some of this. It's kind of looking a little purpley. So don't be shy with just kind of experimenting, right? Okay, so let's see what happened over here. I got to talking, but that's okay. See, we can lift. So my brush is wet, and I just did a little scrubbing with my brush, and I was able to lift and get rid of those hard edges there. So now while it's wet, I'm going to get this whole side wet and then drop some paint in there and just let all this dry, and we'll get to the trees. So we're moving along here. So while that's wet, let me just, I'm really not worried about too much detail on this because the grass is going to cover a lot of the bottom here too. So that's kind of why I'm not really paying attention to the bottom part. There. Just want to, we do a little red on that side. Whoops, a little warm red there. Okay. Chat looks good. So let's go back to our greens. Let's let all that dry. I like the barn door. I think it looks good. Doesn't matter. Tomato, tomato. Okay. Here's my tree brush, right? And you can see how that dried. So we just need to do a few more layers, right, to get it to our darker values and push them back. So I'll do a couple trees because I know I was running late and I'm trying to get this done in a decent amount of time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same kind of blue green, but I'm going to add a little of, let's see what happens when I add a little Payne's Gray. Kind of goes a little more blue. I have a little brown over here, so let's see what we have. Yeah, so that's kind of a darker value than this one. So I'm going to really go in and get my dark values because that's going to really bring it kind of to life. I'm just going to kind of jump ahead a little bit and do the edging right here. And I probably won't touch that because it's still wet. But I just want to get this layer in because I know I'm going to need more layers over it. So I just want to get this one in, get it to dry. I guess it's dry enough. I can kind of just go next to it. There we go. And then a little shaping of the roof. Good. Okay, now I'm going to just kind of spread the brush, a little more color, and just kind of looking at the trees, looking at the reference photo. And I don't want all this color, so I'm just gonna kind of do that, right? And then maybe I'll put a little bit of this color over here, like down where it's shaded. But I don't want all the trees the same color. It's kind of what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to do different colors, which is why I kind of think it makes, it's so interesting. I'm gonna add a little yellow to this one. Let's see what happens. Not too bad. A little yellow for the tops. All right, a little canopy. And then you want to make sure, really the best thing to do to kind of keep an eye on is just to keep the whites. Just pay attention to the white of the paper and keep the little white parts of the paper showing through, because that really, otherwise you risk it looking like it's overworked. I think that's when a painting looks like it's overworked, if you don't have enough of the light showing through, right? So, of the white of the paper, I mean. So, okay. So let me so there's that. And then we'll let this dry. Get a little darker. And, except down here where there is definitely no light of the paper, or I mean, no sky coming through. This is definitely all um, in a shadow area. And then we can make with the different values, can make it kind of turn it into a bit of a shrub, right? So I can do a little light, get a little yellow on there, and then just do some highlights, right? And then just kind of turn it into a shrub. And then maybe over the barn a little bit, right? So that's just kind of how you tie it in, right? Over the barn. And I'm trying to go a little faster. I probably will do another layer of the barn, but let's do the first layers of the clouds. So let's focus on the clouds right now. And for the clouds, I'm going for a Winsor Newton sable. So this is a sable, and I try to do synthetic when I can, but I ended up getting this sable to try it, and so I have it. All right, now I'm going into, what am I doing? I'm going into Payne's Gray with a little alizarin crimson, right? Sticking to the palette. You don't need to mix up too much, right? So I have a little purple ready there. I don't know if it's on camera. Okay, that's good. So the reason I like the sables and they're so popular is because they are really, they hold a ton of water. So here we go. Everything good? I think I'm still live. So when you look at clouds, usually the darker part is is on the bottom, but it's always good to have a reference photo for clouds. Always good for me. I mean, I don't really do enough of them, but if you don't do a ton of clouds, go outside, take some photos, and then some storm clouds, I guess. I mean, if you want to do some easy clouds just by lifting up with your tissue, that's fine. But storm clouds are always, get a little too red there. So now I'm going to go for it and do a little Payne's Gray. Okay. And I think I'm gonna, there we go. Now what I'm gonna do is while it's still wet, here comes the fun part. I'm grabbing the gouache. Now this is zinc white, okay? This is white gouache zinc. So there's a difference between zinc and titanium. Zinc, and I'm taking it right out of the tube. And what I'm going to do is just flop it down there. And then if it gets a little too, I got too much, I'm going to go with a little more blue. Got a little purple. There we go. That looks nice. Can always pick it up, add some water, right? It's a great thing about this paper too, is that it's really easy to lift. Great. And let's get this before these dry. Okay. I'm going to add a little, I know, I'm sorry, I'm doing this to my brush. There we go. Just have to add, get some good dollop of gouache on the brush. Blend it in. And then a little bit of white underneath. Just looking at the clouds. You know, I mean, it's cloud. So it's not like you have to watch, follow your reference perfectly. But cloud, the white and storm clouds, they're layered too. Everything is kind of layered in landscapes. It's just all, I mean, any kind of painting, it's all kind of just layered. Any kind of art, I should say. When doing colored pencils, layer, 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 right? Okay, so that looks okay. It looks a little too even for me. I'm gonna blot that up. There we go. Then let's go to this guy. I'm gonna add a little blue. Any questions or anybody? No? I don't know if I have anybody watching anyway. Okay. But the great thing about it is that this will be on replay, so you can watch it anytime. There we go. So it's going to dry a lot lighter. So if it looks a little funky now, just don't worry about it. It's going to dry. There we go. All right, I think I'm going to let that dry and then just do a second layer with the gouache. So we really have some white, really bright white fluffy clouds. So this is about 2 or 3 layers. So we'll just let that dry and see what we got. And then I think we'll get started on another fun part, which is the grass. So there's this cool brush that I found. It's called the Deerfoot Brush by Princeton. And it's kind of like a stipple brush. So you can probably use this for trees as well. I'm not really sure about that, but it's really fun when I did this grass here. So the wispy, it's real wispy type of grass. I mean, instead of spreading the brush, right, like I was doing for the trees, instead of doing something like that or a fan brush, you just have this for like the super wispies. So what I'm going to do here is do the grass. Okay. I'm going to do my lightest grass first, which is, I'm going for the bismuth yellow, but I also do have a little warm yellow ready to go. Well, it's not. I don't think Windsor yellow is really warm. Is that Windsor yellow? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, your lightest color doesn't have to match perfectly. So I'm not gonna whoops, I'm not gonna wet or anything first. I'm just gonna kind of go for it. All this is pretty much dry, so it kind of takes a lot of layers of blending. And I probably would have done maybe another shrub there, but I want to just kind of get moving. And I was late, so then let's get a little green. Can mix in a little bit of the green, right? Isn't that neat? And then just kind of keep going. And see how the green takes over? So you want to kind of be careful. This way you do your yellow first. There's my warm. That's Windsor yellow. Okay. Mix in a couple different yellows in there. And then see what happens if it gets too wet. You just kind of get one mark. So that's why you always want to have your practice brush or practice paper. Yeah, it holds a lot of water. Holds a lot of water. Way more water than I expected. I did put the link. This is sold on Amazon, so I did put the link in the description if you want to check it out. I have so many fun new brushes I've been checking out lately. Experimenting with. I'm going to be doing a review on the ones that I used on Tuesday for the cattails. Okay, so I'm going to get some green back in there. And I have majority of my yellow down. And I'm not quite done with the doors there yet, so I think I'll just kind of put this layer down. I am going to do another layer on the barn, so I think I just wanted to do a quick demo to kind of show you this brush. There. So yeah, after about 3 layers, I think I added a little gouache in there too, to get the super light ones, kind of makes them look like they're forward, right? So I'm gonna do a little bit more on the barn, the trees, add a shrub. Probably will be done. I may switch. Let's see, get my toothbrush. Yeah, any questions or anything? No? Okay. Well, thanks for joining if you have to go. I know I was Oh, well, hello, Miss Melanie. I just saw your comment. Thank you. Glad you made it. Sorry I was late. Yeah, I apologize for that. Uh, okay. So let me just do a couple more layers here of this barn. I kind of want to define the door. I'm doing this out of my head. I don't have a reference for the barn door, but it's just the door. How hard can it be? So I just want to get, whoops, it's a little wet there. I just want to get a little, and I don't actually want too much detail either because I don't want it too close, right? The area that's closest to the viewer is the grass. So that should be more in focus, the most in focus, right? The most detail, I mean, in focus. Detail, like a photo. Yeah. I think I'm going to add a little bit more of the Windsor red, a little warmer red. I think it might brighten it up a little bit. Kind of a typical, your regular barn red. And then let's see, we just have a little, yeah, maybe we'll just kind of do a little dry brushing, right? Maybe that'll give it a little pop. And also dry brushing kind of makes it look like it's closer because it's kind of looks like it has detail, right? So lots of techniques. I didn't really discuss too much about color theory. I kind of wanted this to be a little bit more about color theory, but I think what I can say really about color theory is you know, less is more. Don't use a ton of colors in your palette. All you really need are your primaries, you know, your red, yellow, blue, and if you have a warm and a cool from each red, yellow, blue, then you're pretty much set. And this was a good one for color theory because we have the blues, right? The reds, the yellows, and then we have the greens mixed in there. So this was a good one to experience a lot of colors and mixing colors with just a limited palette. So I'm going to go a little darker down here. I'm going to start covering all that with grass anyway. So there we go. There. While that dries, because I want to do the grass, we could do maybe one more little finish up this tree over here and get the trunks in there. And again, I know I started late. If you need to go, I understand. But thank you for watching. Going to be here next week as well. Trying to get a little bit more of a YouTube presence going on. There we go. All right. Oh, a little purple there on the palette. So that'll definitely make it darker. So now let's get the darker. So this green over here is in shade. So we can go pretty dark. I'm not really too afraid. I don't really want too much light coming through. Just a little bit for a little contrast and shape. There we go. Spread it a little bit and just kind of so not too much. Now, while that is still wet, now I'm going to grab a liner. Maybe use my new little rigger brush and get some brown, a little dark brown. And while it's still wet, you can put kind of the trunk in there. And it's nice to do it when it's wet because then it maybe a couple trees. You don't have to do a couple branches. You don't have to do every single branch. Just enough to know that it's a tree. Then the nice thing is when it, again, what I was saying is when it's wet is it kind of blends in with the green a little bit. So blends in with and then we can maybe, I don't know, we want to make this trunk go all the way there, then we do a little green over it to blend it in a little more when it's dried. So there's that. Then while I have this brush ready to go, grab a little more brown, a little blue. I'm going to do the trunk here first, and then I'm going to do some more green over it to blend, to kind of push the trunk back. So the trunk isn't just front and center like that, because that doesn't really look realistic. And then some branches here for the shrub. And then maybe just something in there, right? Then when you do a green over, and I think what I'm going to do actually is a little yellow because it's getting kind of green. So I'm going to just grab a yellow. For some highlights. I can put it kind of right in front of the trunk so the trunk doesn't stand out so much. Right? Just a touch of highlight over here because it's closest to the sun, so it's kissing the sun. And then a little green in front of there. And I don't know, it needs something right here, doesn't it? Let's make another tree, why not? Why don't we, well, no, just for time's sake. Let's do, there's kind of a weeping willow in the reference photo. Let's see if I can make a weeping willow. Maybe with the, this, yeah, that's better. Kind of a weeping willow tree. So I probably should have practiced this on a little piece of paper first, but I think different trees, different colors of trees, just make it so interesting, right? A little darker. And then I'm just going to kind of say less is more here. And then, okay. Let me just put in a little trunk so it doesn't look so bad. Some branches. Branches. All right. So just an idea of how to do different trees. Okay, any questions? I'm going to kind of start wrapping it up here. Oh, I'll do one more round of the grass in the bottom. One more layer. I think that'll look good with another little layer there. Let me do the grass on the bottom and add, I think if you add a little of the gouache again, right, just to get some foreground color. I rarely put gouache in my, I usually have a separate palette for the gouache, but I'm just kind of rushing right now, so I want to get a lighter value of the yellow, so I'm just mixing it with a little white gouache, and then I can get, you can see how that will be in the foreground, right? It needs to be darker. We need a darker background to have a lighter foreground. If you want something to look lighter, you got to put something darker next to it. It's pretty much a golden rule of anything, of all colors. So let's go darker. A little darker, and we'll do a little yellow over. Just kind of go back and forth. That's pretty much what it's about. Layer, 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 till you're happy with what you have. So now I'm kind of just blending in, starting to cover the barn. And eventually it'll just kind of start, it'll start coming together. It's all about the details. Kind of all comes together towards the end with the details. So Have no fear. Just do more layers. Okay, but I think you guys kind of get the gist of it, and I just kind of wanted to show you this cool brush. And I'm sorry I didn't talk more about color theory, but I think doing the swatch card, you can kind of see, or the swatch diary, you can kind of see what, the simple palette, right? And look at all the colors we did with just these four main colors, 4 or 5 main colors. So yeah, so just a little more detail. Actually, I think I kind of think I would do a window right there. But or maybe a tree, right? Maybe I'll pull the tree right in front of the barn. I don't know. But you can see how the sky now that the clouds dried, the gouache dried, kind of some fun stormy clouds there. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of it. I think it's almost been an hour now, and I may have one person watching. Not sure if anybody's watching left, but thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll be back next week. Appreciate it. I'm enjoying these live streams for lots of reasons. But any questions, leave them in the chat. I have lots of information in the description. And thanks again for watching. Okay, bye, everybody.